So now knowing what we know, right? So we've got Karen's places in Nightmare. So we know that he's going to have to. These are. I feel like these will be best done in mechanics, right? The suit maintenance, the dark magic effects, right? So we're going to have these bosses. So technically, especially because I can't remember the seventh sorrow, jeez, we may need to design these villains, or at least strengthen the like 20-year-old design of some of these other ones. The Kiss of Shadow. This might be a good thing for a mechanic, right? So again, like this is going to be controlled a lot by the type of game we make, right? So we're talking about doing a side scroller, maybe Metroidvania type platformer game. So my understanding of how level structure works, right? So you've got games like Mega Man where there's a stage select. Then you've got games like Metroid where technically the whole map is open in there, right? But you've got to like unlock keys and stuff and go to different places. And then you've got games like, like Ghosts and Goblins and stuff like that, where it's like the whole map is there. You're just constantly moving forward. You know what I mean? And there's like a boss at the end of the level kind of deal. So now we've got to keep in mind our game design limitations, right? Like our genre, like our level structure limitations and stuff like that. So in telling this story, we have to remember that it's on a two-dimensional plane and you're moving forward. Either that or we've got to go with stage select. But I don't feel like, I feel like stage select makes sense when there's an idea that your character has like a base of operations or like somewhere you can go to sort of rest. Like a springboard from which you would go to a level once you've selected it, if that makes sense. Gafgarin's in sort of like a nomadic state where he's in a land that there's no towns or anything like that. Like he has only what he carried with him into this realm. He doesn't have any place he can go to like really plan stuff or study things or do anything. So it's sort of like, what would he be doing during level select or during stage select? Where is he? What is he doing? Kind of thing. So I feel like I almost feel like the better way to do it would be either like the Metroid or like Ghosts and Goblins type of way. That it makes like, I don't know what else you would call it, the cinematography almost, like a bit of a challenge when you want to do these scenes because everything's so two-dimensional. And then he takes us, right? Maybe like a small tutorial on some of the mechanics of the game. Then you go and you try out so now we've got to combine gameplay pacing with our story pacing, right? So my idea would be you start here. So this would be the game intro. Then this is your very first fight, right? It will be difficult in a sense so that you have to try, but it'll be forgiving also. So letting the player know that you're in over your head starting out, but also being forgiving enough that it's not like, oh my God, the first level's insane, and then you have this part where he's taking note of all of his, of his power armor and what's going on. And here's a good point, right, to get some tutorial info in and be like, man, wasn't that fight hard? Maybe you should try these things that you can do in the game that you might not have known about, and it'll make things easier. Right? And so then the player's like, oh yeah, that would have made stuff easier. And so then you have a chance to go out and play with these new mechanics, right? You go out and you find the small monster that he's able to absorb and use for mana. And then okay, so now how? So by then the player should know the beginning mechanics of the game. And then we come into here, right, where then a big monster has to show up. So maybe this would be the threshold, right? Maybe the big monster shows up, you get in over your head, and then the help arrives when she arrives and saves you. This is a good time for a little bit of a lore dump, right? Let the player know where they are, what's going on, some of the rules of the land, the last little bit of like tutorial stuff, if you will. And then Gafgarin goes on his way, right? He decides that he's going to take out Svedanta either way, that he's not stopping. And so now we were talking about having 7 sorrows, right? But Gafgarin is one of those. So really, we're talking about 6. So that means we've got 6 bosses. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Would have made for a good stage select. All right. So we've got 6 bosses. And if we go that old school route we're talking about, where there's like a boss per stage kind of thing, then that's at least 6 stages, right? If you count this, if this is all one stage, right? If you have your tutorial stage, and then let's say you have a sort of a play with what you've learned in the tutorial stage, right? And then I think that stage should end with this boss, and then end with you doing this and talking to them and all that kind of stuff, right? And then she tells you, like, you kind of figure out what you need to do, and you're able to progress through the game now, right? So we've got 2 levels or 2 stages, plus 6, plus at least 1. Like, most of these games usually have, like, the last stage is broken up into a couple different stages or something like that. So let's say that we're going to need at least 2 stages for the final conflict, right? Like maybe like you get to like Svedanta's castle or something, and you've got to do the castle, and that's 1 stage. And then you have like a shorter last, like, you know, second stage where eventually it, like, you know, leads to the final boss fight kind of deal, right? So we're gonna say 2. So right now we're looking at 11 stages, but so now we've got to move this forward. All right, so that's 11 stages so far. So now what I'm wondering is, what do we need in between this and once you start taking out bosses, right? Do we need anything in there? So you get that, right? That's because I can't help but feel like there's something needed right here that kind of prepares you for the whole Seven Sorrows thing. So let's throw maybe like a little MacGuffin in, right? So you can, all right, so we know that through our mechanics we're going to need to deal with the suit, the power armor stuff. So you've gone and you've fueled it up. Oh, I know, Mega Man style. Let's Mega Man style this puppy. All right, so like this, right? So you need parts for your suit, right? Gafgarin needs, because you know that you're gonna have to use dark magic, or maybe just being in the nightmare is exacerbating the, you know, the Kiss of Shadow curse or something like that, right? Like you need the suit because the suit buys you time. We can add that in, right? So you've got your challenges are the bosses, your mana management, and your suit maintenance, and then of course staying alive. So that thing in between can be suit stuff. Maybe Gafgarin needs to repair stuff about his power armor, and he's got to find something that can do it. But there's going to be a challenge involved, because why would any Magitech parts be here, right? So we would need to think of something, whether he needs to, maybe she tells him about some dark sorcerer or like a dark wizard who knows how to do something that will help him, or like, you know, maybe something like just something like he has to do, whether it's like somehow some parts of Magitech got sent to Nightmare and there's like actual like Magitech stuff laying around, or whether somebody has to like use magic on him, like imbue his suit with something, or something like something he needs to go do. So that would be 1 more level at least, because the way the structure of this game is working out now, it's like you got your intro, you've got your first level, and then you've got, you know, the stuff that tells you what to do, and then there's this, I'm going to draw it as like an open line. There's this part here where it's like suit stuff, right? And then defeating the Sorrows in succession, and then the boss fight. Or maybe you could break it up even, right? Like if we're talking from a game design standpoint, maybe you can pepper this in through this, right? Like maybe between each boss fight, you could have a thing that he needs to get or do to like get to the boss. So let's say that, right? Let's say that he's got like, so that'll be like the secondary motivation that breaks up that direct line from beginning to end, right? And gives the game and story dimension. is that you've got to maintain your suit. So whenever he has to do anything other than just track down these 6 like lieutenants and dispatch them, or whenever he's not directly going after Svedanta, he's doing something to maintain his suit or gain more power or something like that. Okay. So now, all right, so actually that's a pretty good structure, I think, for the game, right? So you've got primary motivation, defeat Svedanta. Boom. Secondary motivation, maintain your suit. And then I guess your tertiary motivation, like a third would be story related stuff, right? Like so now we go back to the story. Now that we've got a structure for our game design, right? Like with our levels and we know how we're going to do this, let's revisit these story ideas real quick. And I'm moving quickly here because this is going to be a long video. Because I'm basically devlogging almost from scratch, prototyping a game development here, like develop like the pen and paper aspect of game design. And so I'm trying to move quickly so that I stay on track and I don't get distracted, and also because, so I doubt people are going to watch this whole thing. But all right, so we're right here now, right? All right, so he wants to kill Svedanta, can't give up, can't go home, slave to others, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now we go back to this. So now we have to start asking these questions. Who is this? Now, we've got these 2 characters up here. They can easily, so the first thing that comes to mind, I'll just go ahead and spitball it and put it out there while I'm thinking about it. So this could be one of the 2 friends, right? This could be the one that loves him. Or that loved him, right? And when she meets him, we don't know yet whether or not he recognizes her. Let's say for effect and for drama effect, let's say that just like, like we said, she's got the little bandana on, right? So he doesn't know who she is at first. But she saves him, she gives him some tips, and then she dips out. So then the player would go to do the first thing they need to do before going after the bosses, right? To get the suit repair stuff. She would need to show up again. So let me think of what would be a good way to reveal her identity. Oh, you know what might be interesting? I don't really have a lot of stuff to back this, but just a thought. Just like a random thought. What if the 2 friends were at odds and they try to pit Gafgarin against one another before he realizes who they are? The reveal would be once, maybe the player has a choice of who to help or who to go after. I don't know. As I'm saying it, it's feeling kind of weak, so maybe not. So we need to have the friend come in here. So there's a couple things that I need to pinpoint now and we need to know what they are ahead of time so that we can incorporate them into the game design structure. We need to know so we kind of know his challenges. We know his challenges, but we don't know his temptations yet. And we don't know what the abyss is going to be. So we know that his challenges are, of course, surviving the nightmare, staying alive long enough to fight Svedanta. The challenges are also the game mechanics, right? Like maintaining your suit, finding mana, all that kind of stuff. His temptations. Because temptations are important. And then the abyss here, right? And so let's take account of what we have so far. Because rather than add things, I try to once you get to a certain point where you've got a couple pieces in play, it's my own kind of practice to try to to see what you can use out of there and how many ways you can use it. There comes a point where you want to stop adding things unless it's really adds to it. You know what I mean? So let's take account of what we have to work with here. We've got Gafgarin, we've got Svedanta, we've got the Sorrows, and we've got the 2 friends, possibly. So, what temptations could there be? Because Gafgarin is notoriously resistant to Svedanta's temptations, as we've already seen in Neverspring. He doesn't get tempted by seduction, he doesn't get tempted by money or that kind of stuff. He does get tempted by power. And let's see. So for the abyss here, if we've got the friends, the abyss could be the revelation of who they are, and then something happens to them, or they reveal themselves to, feel some kind of way about him, something that would actually like affect him, and not just something, not just so, because Gafgaren's really good at blowing stuff off and compartmentalizing things, right? So it would have to be something that gets to him, and that would cause the beginning of a transformation. And then maybe his motivation for why he wants to kill Svedanta would change as his atonement. And then his return would be losing. And then, like, basically the return feeds into the next Neverspring game when he actually physically returns. You know what I mean? So we've got a strong beginning, and we come into this part pretty well. And then, like, so this whole quadrant of the little hero's journey circle we're missing still, right? You know what? Let's do this. Let's look up a 3-act structure. All right. So we don't necessarily know. So how many acts are we going to have for this game, right? So Act 1 would be all of this, right? So basically we've got Act 1 situated, which would be him coming in, getting trapped here, deciding that he's going to go after her anyways, and then being told that he needs to go find something or do something to help him defeat her. And then getting that thing will spark the beginning of you having to actually like do this, right? So that would be 1 act, 2 acts, and then the final, right? But does that give us enough room to do what we need to do with the story?